Hi everybody, it's the Monday, December 14th, getting closer to Christmas. Is that 11 days? Wow, less than 2 weeks. I'd like to read from the Gospel of Matthew, at least a portion of it, chapter 21. When Jesus had come into the temple area, the chief priests and elders of the people approached him as he was teaching and said, "By what authority are you doing these things? Who gave you this authority?" Jesus said to them in reply, "I shall ask you one question. If you answer it for me, then I shall tell you by what authority I do these things. Where was John's baptism from? Was it of heavenly or of human origin?" They discussed among themselves and said, "If we say heavenly origin, he will say to us, then why did you not believe him? If we say human origin, we fear the crowd, for they all regard John as a prophet." So they said to Jesus in reply, "We do not know." He himself said to them, "Neither shall I tell you by what authority I do these things." The Gospel of the Lord. Boy, that Jesus is pretty shrewd. They thought they pinned him. But he put it back on them and they were stuck. They couldn't answer. Either way they lose. Right? That was a very shrewd. To me, being shrewdness, today's feast is St. John of the Cross. He was a Carmelite. That's a religious order, which, by the way, belonging here is St. Teresa's parish. She was a nun in the Carmelite order, though he was centuries before her. He died in 1591. And you see the name John of the Cross, we realize this is not a party animal, John of the Cross. I mean, he took upon himself, a life of austere penance, fasting, but a holy man, a good man. And the Carmelites were getting a little bit too, liberal, away from the original founder, not practicing prayer and the silence that they agreed to. And so he, along with St. Teresa of Avila, to reform the Carmelites, to get back where they should be. But people weren't too happy to reform. And so they were not too happy with John of the Cross. And so they put him in jail. His own order. These are priests who did it to him. And his brutal regime, was public lashings before the community, at least weekly. Imagine your own fellow priest, they would put him in front, and that was like their spectacle, lashing him. And then he was in severe isolation in a tiny, stifling cell measuring a bare 10 feet by 6 feet. All right, that was his home. Except when rarely permitted an oil lamp. He had to stand on a bench to read his breviary by the light through a little hole in the adjoining room. Breviary is a prayer book usually from Scripture. No change of clothing, and a penitential diet of water, bread, and scraps of salt fish. Imagine. And during this time, though, he composed a great part of his most famous poem. It's called the Spiritual Canticle. Anyway, the paper was passed to him by a friar who guarded the cell, who had little mercy and pity on him, snuck some paper to him so he could write. After 8 months, he escaped. And yet he wrote it. He said, "At the end of our life, at the evening of our life, we shall be judged on how we have loved." And this is a man who went through a lot of suffering and yet did not allow his heart to turn bitter, seek revenge. He still became a loving. And he said that suffering for God is better than working miracles. So John of the Cross. Sometimes we wonder why we go through some trials and tribulations and sufferings, or we may be mistreated by others, and allows us to make us bitter and angry. Not John. I don't think any of us went through what he went through. So in these difficult moments of life, seek God's grace, that somehow God can work through it and find a good in it as well, rather than get angry and bitter. Just surrender to God and say, "Lord, somehow if your hand is in this, and I trust you will bring good out of it." God bless you.